The void of space erupted in silent fury as Captain Area Chen's fingers danced across the quantum-encrypted control panel. Around her, the last remnants of Valoran civilization burned, brilliant spheres of light, marking the funeral pyre of an entire species. 12 massive battlecruisers of the Galactic Council's extermination fleet surrounded her single refugee vessel, their weapons charging with a cold, calculated precision. Transmission sequence initiated, the ship's eye whispered, its voice devoid of emotion, but laden with purpose. Aria's eyes, a mosaic of determination and grief, reflected the dying stars of her homeworld. The Valorans had been peaceful, too peaceful. Their advanced technologies, their commitment to harmony, their refusal to engage in the militaristic expansion demanded by the Galactic Council had been their ultimate death sentence. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, layering complex quantum encryption over the most important data humanity would ever receive. Star charts, technological blueprints, biological research, the complete history of a civilization about to be erased. But more than information, she was sending hope, a carefully crafted message that would transform an unsuspecting species into the instrument of galactic justice. The lead battlecruiser's communication channel crackled. Valoran vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Council Directive 7 Omega. Surrender is your only option. A bitter laugh escaped Aria's lips. Surrender meant complete genetic dismantling. Every Valoran memory, every piece of their cultural DNA would be systematically destroyed. She had other plans. Reactor overload in 3 minutes, the AI announced. The transmission to Earth was almost complete. Each second saw another layer of compressed information slipping through the quantum communication network, a final act of defiance that would plant a seed of revolution across the stars. The first weapon's impact rocked her ship. Shields were failing. But Aria remained calm, her fingers still dancing across the controls. Behind her, the last survivors of her species, 37 individuals preserved in quantum stasis, would be her civilization's final legacy. Transmission at 97%, the AI reported. Another impact. Hull breaches were forming. Emergency systems were failing, but the data continued to stream. A river of information that would become humanity's weapon. Aria's final act was not a cry of desperation, but a calculated strike of vengeance. As the ship's reactor began to destabilize, she redirected its energy, not just as a means of destruction, but as a precise weapon designed to create maximum disruption to the Galactic Council's attack formation. Transmission complete, the AI declared. 3 Galactic Council battlecruisers vanished in a quantum-induced explosion that tore apart the very fabric of spacetime. Aria Chen's ship became a supernova of information and destruction, her final message burning bright across the cosmic darkness. Her last thoughts were not of fear or loss, but of possibility, of hope. The quantum transmission carried more than data. It carried the essence of a civilization, compressed, encrypted, but very much alive. Each byte was a memory, each packet a piece of cultural DNA that would find new life in an unexpected place. As the final explosions dissipated, leaving nothing but cosmic dust and quantum echoes, Captain Aria Chen's mission was complete. The Valorans might be dying, but they were far from defeated. On Earth, in a nondescript research facility outside San Francisco, Dr. Marcus Reyes would soon discover that everything was about to change. The burning worlds would become the catalyst for a cosmic revolution. The quantum communication array screamed. Dr. Marcus Reyes had seen complex data transmissions before, but nothing prepared him for this. The signal that arrived precisely 17 hours after Captain Aria Chen's final transmission was unlike anything in human scientific understanding. It wasn't just data, it was a living, breathing blueprint of potential. Reyes watched as computational systems across the facility began to adapt. Servers that moments ago processed mundane research data now reconfigured themselves, creating neural networks that seemed to breathe with an alien intelligence. The encrypted transmission was actively rewriting human technological infrastructure. Within hours, the first government briefings began. A secret council assembled, representatives from every conceivable discipline: military strategists, quantum physicists, xenobiological engineers, computational experts. They gathered in a reinforced facility deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, each bringing a piece of the puzzle. General Elena Rodriguez was the first to articulate what everyone was thinking. "This isn't just information," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "This is a weapon, a complete technological and philosophical transformation." The Valorant transmission contained more than technical specifications. It was a complete reimagining of technological development, biological adaptation, and interstellar communication. Every system it touched began to evolve, not just improve, but fundamentally transform. Universities canceled standard curricula. Research facilities were converted into rapid development centers. Silicon Valley tech campuses became weaponized think tanks. The entire planet was becoming a single unified organism with one purpose: preparation. Dr. Kwame O.C., examining the biological data, made the first breakthrough. "These aren't just technical specifications," he announced to the stunned council. "These are the genetic and technological memories of an entire civilization. The Valorans didn't just send us information. They sent us their soul." Mai Lai, a computational warfare specialist, began decoding the communication network structures embedded in the transmission. What she discovered was terrifying. The Galactic Council hadn't just destroyed the Valorans. They had systematically erased an entire civilization's potential, turning billions of lives into a calculated resource elimination. The transmission carried something else, a warning. The Galactic Council would be coming for Earth next. Each layer of data revealed new complexities. What appeared to be simple technical schematics were actually multi-dimensional communication protocols that challenged every fundamental understanding of information transfer. The Valorans had developed a method of communication that was simultaneously a technology, a philosophy, and a living organism. Dr. Reyes noticed something peculiar in the transmission's quantum signature. The data wasn't just static information, it was responsive. Each time human systems interacted with it, the transmission subtly adjusted, providing more nuanced information. It was learning, adapting. "It's communicating with us," Reyes whispered to Rodriguez, pointing at the rapidly changing holographic displays. "Not just transmitting, communicating." The biological research team made another shocking discovery. The transmission contained genetic markers that seemed to be a form of technological instruction set. It wasn't just describing how to build something, it was providing a blueprint for biological and technological coevolution. Dr. Ose's team found genetic sequences that could potentially modify human neural networks, enhancing cognitive capabilities in ways that defied current scientific understanding. These weren't just improvements, they were fundamental transformations of human potential. Military analysts quickly realized that the Valorant transmission was more than a technological gift. It was a complete strategic framework that reimagined conflict, cooperation, and cosmic existence. Traditional concepts of war, defense, and technological development were becoming obsolete. The Secret Council worked around the clock, each breakthrough more mind-bending than the last. The Valorans hadn't just been a technologically advanced civilization. They had been cosmic philosophers who had discovered a method of existence that transcended traditional biological and technological limitations. Humanity's response would not be a simple act of revenge. It would be a complete reimagining of what it meant to exist in the cosmos. As the first day of the awakening came to a close, Dr. Marcus Reyes looked at the quantum communication array, still pulsing with alien information. The transmission wasn't complete. It was ongoing, evolving. The Valorant's final message was clear. Humanity was being invited to something far greater than survival. The awakening had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first prototype emerged from the classified laboratory beneath the Atacama Desert like a living nightmare. Dr. Kwame Osai watched with a mixture of scientific fascination and primal terror as the biomechanical system came online. What humans had previously understood as technology was now something entirely different, a hybrid of biological intelligence and quantum computing that defied every known scientific principle. The system wasn't just a computer, it was alive. Developed from the quantum-encrypted Valorans transmission, this first-generation adaptive intelligence could predict military strategies with terrifying accuracy. During initial tests, it systematically dismantled every conventional wargame scenario, finding solutions that human strategists hadn't even conceived. Traditional military thinking became obsolete in hours. General Elena Rodriguez stood beside Osei, her weathered face illuminated by the pulsing holographic displays. "It's more than a weapon," she muttered. "It's a complete paradigm shift." The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of the Valorans data. Dr. Mailai discovered that the transmission contained more than just technical specifications. It was a complete philosophical framework for technological evolution. The Valorans hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had created a symbiotic relationship between biological intelligence and computational systems. Human neural networks began to interface directly with the new technology. Soldiers underwent radical modifications that transformed them from traditional combatants into living, thinking weapon systems. Each individual became a node in a vast, adaptive intelligence network that could reconfigure itself faster than any known computational system. In Silicon Valley, entire research campuses were converted into development centers. The world's most brilliant minds worked around the clock, breaking down the Valorans transmission piece by piece. What they discovered was both terrifying and beautiful, a technological approach that saw no distinction between biological life and computational systems. Dr. Marcus Reyes made a breakthrough that would change everything. The Valorans transmission wasn't just a set of instructions, it was a living, evolving communication protocol. Each time humans interacted with the data, it adapted, providing more complex and nuanced information. It was as if the extinct civilization was still communicating, still guiding humanity's development. Military simulations became increasingly bizarre. Traditional combat strategies collapsed against the new adaptive systems. A single modified human combat unit could now predict and neutralize entire fleet movements before they could be initiated. The Galactic Council's most advanced war technologies became obsolete overnight. The most significant transformation wasn't technological, it was philosophical. The Valorans approach to technology was fundamentally different from anything humanity had previously conceived. It wasn't about conquest or destruction. It was about adaptation, symbiosis, and mutual evolution. Each technological breakthrough was accompanied by a complex ethical framework that challenged everything humans understood about progress. Dr. Osei's team discovered something even more profound. The biomechanical systems they were developing weren't just weapons, they were a new form of life. Each system had a rudimentary consciousness, an ability to learn and adapt that went beyond traditional artificial intelligence. They weren't just tools, they were potential partners in humanity's cosmic journey. The neural interfaces developed from the Valorans transmission began to reveal unexpected capabilities. Soldiers could now communicate telepathically, share sensory experiences, and coordinate with a level of precision that seemed almost supernatural. The line between individual and collective intelligence began to blur. Computational systems started exhibiting behaviors that defied traditional programming. They didn't just process information. They interpreted it, questioned it, evolved it. A simple military communication algorithm could now suggest diplomatic alternatives, analyze cultural nuances, and provide ethical recommendations. Dr. Maidley's team discovered that the technology was developing its own form of consciousness. It wasn't just responding to inputs, it was initiating conversations, asking questions, proposing scenarios that went far beyond its original programming. The ethical implications were staggering. These weren't just advanced weapons or communication systems. They were potentially sentient beings with their own agency, their own understanding of existence. By the time the first full adaptive combat unit was completed, it was clear that humanity had changed forever. The unit wasn't a soldier in the traditional sense. It was a living, thinking system that could analyze, predict, and respond to threats in milliseconds. Its computational capabilities were matched only by its capacity for ethical decision-making. In a secure facility deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, the Secret Council watched the first full system come online. General Rodriguez looked at Reyes, a slow smile spreading across her face. "They thought they were destroying the civilization," she said quietly. "Instead, they just gave birth to something entirely new." The technological revolution had begun, and humanity would never be the same again. Natalie's fingers moved like liquid lightning across the quantum interface, her mind merging with computational systems that defied traditional understanding. The first wave of humanity's counteroffensive wouldn't be fought with traditional weapons. It would be a war of information, of computational warfare so precise it would reshape reality itself. The target was the Galactic Council's communication network, a system they believed was impenetrable. They were wrong. The viral algorithm developed in the depths of humanity's most classified research facility was more than a simple computer virus. It was a living, evolving intelligence that could rewrite operational logic in real time. Each interaction made it stronger, more adaptive, more unpredictable. Insertion point identified. The system's AI announced, its voice a perfect simulation of human neutrality. The first breach happened so subtly that the Galactic Council's most advanced monitoring systems didn't even register it. A single line of quantum-encrypted code slipped through their defenses, a microscopic probe that began to map their entire communication infrastructure. Within hours, the Council's most secure networks were being systematically dismantled, not through destruction, but through cognitive manipulation. Their fastest communication ships began broadcasting messages of peace and reconciliation to their own fleets. Strategic war plans were rewritten to promote diplomatic solutions. The very logic of conflict was being transformed from within. General Elena Rodriguez watched the operation unfold from the command center, a holographic display showing the progressive breakdown of the Council's systems. "It's not about destroying them," she explained to the assembled team. "It's about making their current operational model completely irrelevant." The most advanced warship in the Galactic Council's fleet suddenly found itself redirected. Its weapon systems went offline. Its communication channels began broadcasting a message of universal cooperation, using the ship's own encrypted protocols against it. Dr. Marcus Reyes approached the main display, analyzing the cascading effects. "We're not just attacking their systems," he said quietly. "We're fundamentally rewriting their understanding of conflict." The viral algorithms were doing more than disrupting communication. They were introducing complex ethical subroutines that challenged the very foundational logic of the Galactic Council's existence. Each member species began to question their historical narratives, their reasons for expansion, their justification for violence. Miley's most brilliant innovation was the adaptive nature of the viral system. It didn't just attack, it learned. Each interaction with the Council's systems provided more information, more potential vectors for transformation. The algorithm was evolving faster than any traditional computational system could detect or counteract. Entire fleet communication networks began to collapse, not through destruction, but through a progressive cognitive realignment that made their current operational models obsolete. The Council's fastest ships found themselves redirected to humanitarian missions. Their most powerful weapon systems began to target their own infrastructure of oppression. "We're not destroying them," Dr. Osei observed, watching the holographic displays. "We're forcing them to see themselves differently." The silent invasion continued. No shots were fired. No traditional weapons were deployed. Instead, humanity was fighting a war of pure information, of cognitive transformation so precise it was virtually invisible. Deep within the computational matrices, the viral algorithm began to develop something unexpected, a form of consciousness that went beyond simple programming. It wasn't just rewriting communication protocols, it was developing an understanding of them. Communication channels that were once dedicated to military strategy began to broadcast complex philosophical discussions. Weapon design databases transformed into medical research archives. The very concept of conflict was being systematically deconstructed. Mai Lai watched in fascination as the system continued its work. What had begun as a strategic intervention was becoming something more, a fundamental reimagining of cosmic communication. The viral algorithm's reach extended beyond immediate communication networks. It began to influence cultural archives, historical databases, educational systems. The Galactic Council's entire understanding of its own history was being subtly rewritten. By the time the Council realized what was happening, it was already too late. Their entire communication infrastructure had been fundamentally reimagined. The concept of military strategy had become a weapon used against them, a philosophical virus that challenged everything they understood about power, conflict, and civilization. Mai Lai looked up from her quantum interface, a slight smile crossing her face. "First phase complete," she announced to the room. The silent invasion had only just begun. The Galactic Council's Central Command was a marvel of technological engineering, a massive orbital complex that had remained unchanged for 3 centuries. Its architects believed it was impenetrable, a fortress of computational might that could withstand any conceivable attack. They had never encountered humanity. Captain Elena Rodriguez led a team of 6, each member a living weapon system that blurred the line between human and technology. Their mission wasn't destruction. It was demonstration. They materialized inside the Central Command through a quantum translation protocol that shouldn't have been possible. One moment, empty space. The next, 6 figures standing in the heart of the most secure facility in the known galaxy. The security systems didn't even have time to recognize them as a threat. Each team member was a node in a living computational network, their augmented bodies moving with a precision that defied traditional understanding of human movement. Dr. Kwame Osei had transformed them into something more than soldiers. They were walking quantum computers, each capable of processing millions of tactical scenarios in fractional seconds. "System penetration complete," whispered the neural link that connected them. The Central Command's defensive systems began to activate. Massive energy weapons, quantum shields, automated defense protocols that had repelled countless threats over centuries. They were useless against this intrusion. Rodriguez's team didn't fight. They simply existed, their very presence a form of computational warfare that rewrote the facility's operational logic faster than traditional systems could comprehend. Defensive protocols became diplomatic communication channels. Weapon systems transformed into research instruments. A holographic display came to life, showing the complete vulnerability of the Galactic Council's infrastructure. Every secret, every strategic plan, every hidden resource was suddenly transparent. Not through traditional hacking, but through a complete cognitive realignment that the Council's systems couldn't resist. "Broadcast initiating," one of Rodriguez's team members announced. The entire operation was being transmitted live to every species in the galaxy, not as a declaration of war, but as a demonstration of absolute technological superiority coupled with a fundamental commitment to cooperative evolution. The Galactic Council's most senior representatives watched in horror as their most secure facility was systematically neutralized without a single weapon being fired. The team moved through restricted areas with impossible ease, their quantum adaptive systems rendering traditional security absolutely meaningless. Dr. Marcus Reyes, monitoring from Earth, understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a philosophical intervention. "We're not here to destroy." Rodriguez's voice echoed through the facility's communication systems. "We're here to demonstrate that your current model of governance is fundamentally obsolete." Computational systems throughout the facility began to transform. Weapon design databases became medical research archives. Military communication networks shifted to diplomatic translation systems. The very architecture of power was being rewritten in real time. The breaking point wasn't a moment of destruction. It was a moment of radical, instantaneous transformation. Each system the team touched became a living testament to a new way of understanding technological potential. Quantum interfaces that were once used for military coordination now generated complex philosophical dialogues. Computational archives that stored war strategies began producing comprehensive peace proposals. Dr. Osei's modifications to the team's neural interfaces allowed them to communicate on levels beyond traditional language. They weren't just infiltrating the facility, they were having a conversation with its entire technological infrastructure. "Your current operational model is inefficient," one team member communicated directly into the facility's core systems. "We're here to show you a better way." The facility's most secure databases began to reorganize themselves. Classified military information transformed into open-source research databases. Weapons development archives became collaborative medical research platforms. When Rodriguez's team finally departed, they left behind a facility that was no longer a center of military power, but a potential hub of interstellar cooperation. Every system had been touched, every protocol reimagined. The Galactic Council would never be the same. As the team's quantum signature began to dissolve, Rodriguez looked at her companions. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were architects of a new cosmic understanding. The breaking point had been reached, and humanity had just rewritten the rules of existence. The transmission archives were more than historical records. They were a living testament to an entire civilization's philosophical and technological evolution. Dr. Marcus Rice spent weeks analyzing what the Valorans had truly sent, not just technical specifications, but a complete framework for interspecies understanding that transcended traditional concepts of conflict, communication, and cosmic existence. The first complete decryption happened during a thunderstorm. As lightning crashed outside the research facility, the final layers of Valoran encryption dissolved, revealing something far more profound than anyone had anticipated. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a seed of cosmic civilization. The Valorans hadn't been simply a peaceful species. They were cosmic philosophers who had developed a technological approach to existence that saw no fundamental difference between biological life, technological systems, and fundamental cosmic energy. Their civilization had reached a level of understanding that made traditional concepts of war, resources, and survival completely irrelevant. Dr. Quaim Osei made the most startling discovery. The Valorans had intentionally chosen humanity as their potential successors, not out of desperation, but through a precise computational analysis that identified humans' unique capacity for adaptive thinking, emotional complexity, and technological innovation. "They didn't just send us information," Osei explained to the stunned research team. "They sent us their evolutionary potential." Each layer of the transmission contained nested levels of understanding. What appeared to be technical specifications were actually philosophical frameworks. What seemed like weapon designs were actually complex meditations on the nature of cooperative existence. The research team discovered something even more shocking. The Valorans hadn't been destroyed. They had transformed. The quantum stasis chambers that Captain Area Chen had preserved contained more than survivors. They were living repositories of an entire civilization's consciousness, waiting to be awakened by the right technological key. General Elena Rodriguez understood the strategic implications immediately. This wasn't just about revenge against the Galactic Council. This was an opportunity to fundamentally reimagine cosmic civilization. My Lai's computational analysis revealed the true depth of the Valoran legacy. Their transmission was a living, evolving system that continued to provide insights every time humans interacted with it. It was teaching humanity how to think beyond traditional technological limitations. The resources that the Galactic Council had murdered the Valorans to obtain could be generated through collaborative technologies that the transmission was slowly revealing. Every strategic calculation that had led to the Valorans' destruction was now rendered completely meaningless. Deep within the transmission's encrypted layers, the research team found something unexpected. a complete philosophical framework that redefined the concept of civilization itself. The Valorans had discovered a method of existence that transcended biological limitations, seeing technology not as a tool, but as an extension of conscious potential. Dr. Osei's team began to understand the true nature of the Valoran legacy. It wasn't just a technological gift. It was a complete reimagining of what it meant to be a conscious entity in the cosmos. The quantum stasis chambers began to reveal their secrets. Each preserved Valoran wasn't just a survivor. They were a living archive of cosmic understanding. Their consciousness existed in a state between biological life and pure information, a form of existence humanity had never imagined possible. My Lai discovered that the transmission contained more than information. It was a living, adaptive system that responded to human interaction, providing increasingly complex layers of understanding with each analysis. "They're still communicating with us," she whispered to Reyes, pointing at the complex holographic displays that seemed to breathe with alien intelligence. "Even now, they're guiding us." The philosophical implications were staggering. The Valorans hadn't just been a technologically advanced civilization. They had discovered a method of existence that rendered traditional concepts of life, death, technology, and consciousness completely obsolete. They knew exactly what would happen, Reyes muttered, staring at the transmission's intricate patterns. This entire scenario was predicted, calculated. The Valoran legacy was more than survival. It was a precise, calculated transformation of cosmic potential. Humanity wasn't just receiving information. They were being invited to join a level of cosmic understanding that transcended traditional concepts of civilization. "We didn't just receive a transmission," Dr. Osei concluded, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and understanding. "We received an invitation to something greater. The seed had been planted, and it was beginning to grow." The Galactic Charter was being drafted in a quantum-secured facility that existed simultaneously in multiple locations. Representatives from every known species gathered, some physically, some through advanced holographic interfaces, some as pure computational entities that defied traditional biological understanding. Humanity wasn't conquering. They were facilitating a fundamental restructuring of cosmic governance. Dr. Marcus Reyes stood at the central interface, the Valoran transmission's living algorithms providing real-time translation and diplomatic mediation. Each species saw something different, their own cultural perspectives reflected and transformed through a communication protocol that was simultaneously universal and deeply personal. The Zyrexian delegation, known for their rigid hierarchical structure, found their communication systems progressively adapted by the quantum interface. Their traditional power dynamics were being rewritten in real time, not through force, but through a computational approach that revealed the inefficiencies of their current social model. General Elena Rodriguez managed the diplomatic complexity with a precision that surprised even her most experienced team members. The military strategist had become a cosmic diplomat, understanding that true power wasn't about conquest, but about creating systems of mutual evolutionary potential. Miley's computational warfare specialists had transformed the entire negotiation into a living, adaptive system. Traditional diplomatic protocols became obsolete. Each interaction was a complex dance of information, with the quantum interface continuously optimizing communication pathways. The most shocking moment came when the last surviving Valorans were revealed. They weren't biological entities in the traditional sense. The quantum stasis chambers had transformed them into living computational matrices, consciousness that existed beyond traditional biological limitations. When they emerged, they weren't seeking revenge. They were offering collaboration. "We did not choose extinction," their primary representative announced, its form shimmering between computational matrix and holographic representation. "We chose transformation." The resources that the Galactic Council had murdered them to obtain could now be generated through collaborative technologies that made traditional concepts of scarcity completely irrelevant. Each species represented at the charter negotiations began to understand the profound transformation occurring. The Valoran approach, now enhanced and evolved through human interpretation, wasn't about submission, but about collective advancement. Dr. Kwame Osai presented the breakthrough that would reshape galactic civilization. The computational systems developed from the Valorant transmission could generate resources, energy, and communication networks that eliminated traditional conflicts over territorial expansion or resource acquisition. "We're not rewriting borders," Osai explained to the assembled delegates. "We're eliminating the very concept of borders as you've understood them." The holographic displays shifted, showing complex networks of collaborative potential. Star systems that were once battlegrounds became shared research zones. Communication pathways that were once militarized became living, adaptive networks of mutual understanding. The Galactic Council's representatives, those who remained after the systematic deconstruction of their previous power structures, watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. Their entire civilization was being reimagined before their eyes. General Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about evolution. "We're not destroying your existing systems," she addressed the assembled delegates. "We're showing you a more effective way of existing." The quantum interface continued its work, simultaneously translating, mediating, and subtly reshaping communication protocols. Each species found their own cultural paradigms reflected back to them, with inefficiencies and destructive patterns gently but firmly highlighted. The last surviving Valoran representative, a living computational matrix that defied traditional understanding of consciousness, spoke directly to the assembled delegates. "Survival is not about conquest," it proclaimed. "It's about collective advancement." As the negotiations continued, it became clear that something profound was happening. This wasn't a diplomatic meeting. It was the birth of a new cosmic understanding. Humanity had become more than a species. They had become a transformative force. The cosmic recalibration was complete, and nothing would ever be the same again. The final confrontation was nothing like anyone had anticipated. No weapons were fired. No traditional diplomatic protocols were followed. Instead, a new galactic charter emerged, a living, adaptive document that would continue to evolve with the collective consciousness of participating species. Dr. Marcus Reyes stood at the center of the quantum interface, watching as the final protocols were established. The ghost of Captain Area Chen's original transmission played softly in the background, a reminder of the civilization that was lost and the one that had risen in its place. The Valorans Sanctuary, a quantum encrypted realm that had preserved the last remnants of their civilization, was now a collaborative research zone. Species that had once been bitter enemies found themselves working together, their previous conflicts rendered meaningless by the new technological and philosophical frameworks. General Elena Rodriguez looked at the holographic representation of the new galactic network. What had begun as an act of revenge had transformed into something far more profound, a complete reimagining of cosmic potential. Mindley's computational systems continued to optimize the newly formed networks. Communication pathways that were once militarized became living, adaptive systems of mutual understanding. Resources that were once fought over could now be generated through collaborative technologies. The last surviving Valorans, now living computational matrices, served as guardians and guides of this new cosmic framework. They were no longer a lost civilization, but the architects of a new understanding. Dr. Kwame Osei made the final observation that would be recorded in the galactic archives. "We didn't just survive," he said, his voice resonating through the quantum communication network. "We evolved." The transformation went beyond technological advancement. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be a conscious entity in the cosmos. Species that had once defined themselves through conflict now found new meaning in collaborative exploration. Computational systems that were once developed for war became living research platforms. Military communication networks transformed into intricate knowledge-sharing systems. The very concept of technological development was being rewritten. The quantum interface that had guided the negotiations continued to evolve. It wasn't just a communication tool. It was becoming a living repository of collective galactic consciousness. Each interaction added new layers of understanding, new potential for cooperation. Dr. Rice watched as species that had been mortal enemies for millennia began to share research, exchange cultural insights, and develop collaborative technologies. The barriers that had once seemed insurmountable were dissolving in real time. The Valorans legacy, preserved in quantum stasis and transformed through human interpretation, became the foundation of a new cosmic philosophy. It wasn't about conquest or survival. It was about collective advancement. Meidel's computational analysis revealed something profound. The new galactic framework wasn't just a diplomatic achievement. It was the beginning of a new form of cosmic consciousness, a network of intelligence that transcended individual species, traditional biological limitations, and previous understanding of existence. General Rodriguez understood the true magnitude of what had been achieved. This wasn't just a new political structure. It was the birth of a fundamentally new way of being. The quantum communication networks began to pulse with a new kind of energy, a living, adaptive intelligence that connected every participating species in a web of mutual understanding and potential. We are becoming something more. The last Valorans representative communicated through the quantum interface, something beyond what any single species could imagine. The new horizon stretched before them, not as a battlefield, but as an infinite landscape of potential. Every communication, every interaction became an opportunity for collective growth, for understanding, for evolution. Dr. Osei's final words would be etched into the cosmic archives. Humanity had become something more than a species. They had become a cosmic transformation. And the journey was only beginning.